Who remembers the Lehman Brothers, the big investment bank that packed up in 2008? Its bankruptcy is one of the largest, leaving thousands of employees jobless. Well, experts say China is heading towards its Lehman moment. But this time, it's not just about money, because all sectors of the economy are about to crash like a stack of cards. China abandoned its zero-COVID policy not too long ago, allowing tourists and shoppers to roam free. Yet, the economy still struggles to keep its head above water. It doesn't matter how you feel about the Chinese government. You don't want this looming disaster to happen. Even the US doesn't want this to happen. This is because most US companies rely on China for raw materials. What then becomes of the US economy if this crash happens? We're also concerned about the billions of vulnerable people across the globe who would suffer the consequences. From unskilled workers relying on factory jobs to business owners, everyone is connected to this economy. While China continues to dance on a tightrope, let's examine 3 reasons why China is on the brink of its biggest crisis in decades. Before that, please smash that subscribe button. Make sure to stick around to the end, as some of these reasons might shock you.
Yeah, that's right. So we got this after the bell yesterday, but essentially the numbers here telling us that the company posted a first half net loss of almost...
And that sector are coming to the forefront again. Our Eunice Yoon is live from Beijing with...
The debt crisis at Chinese builder Country Garden impacting work on even its unfinished projects.
Country Garden, founded by Yang Guocheng in 1992, was the world's biggest real estate boom beneficiary. Its success turned Mr. Yang into... has more bond payments to make monthly for the rest of the year. The turmoil in China's real estate sector has left homebuyers who have made down payments confused and suppliers unpaid. Buyers in several cities nationwide are so frustrated that they're not paying their mortgages in protest at the unfinished developments. New home sales for the top 100 property developers fell by 33% in July, and Country Garden sales were down by a whopping 60%. As for traders, they are even swapping their bonds for as low as 10 cents on the dollar, fearing that they will lose money. The company's liabilities are estimated at $192 billion, nearly 4 times as many housing projects in China. Experts wonder what would happen if they hit pause on construction. Already there have been demonstrations outside the company's headquarters in Guangdong. Earlier this year, the company promised to deliver 700,000 housing units before the end of the year, but it has yet to complete half that number. Much of the real estate woes stem from the drop in sale of apartments. Fewer people in China are interested in buying homes, Plus, Country Garden is also facing a crash crisis. While the government is doing its bit, much of the initiative is centered around big cities like Shanghai and Shenzhen. Sadly, Country Gardens operates in smaller cities with a housing deficit. China is the world's largest property market, with the real estate industry accounting for at least 29% of the country's gross domestic product. Analysts fear that this financial reality could spread to other parts of the economy. And yes, the real estate crash has trickled down to the local government, leaving authorities with huge debts and no hope of repaying them. Home prices have been falling in the past few months thanks to the housing market's slump. And guess what? Land sales, accounting for over 40% of local government revenue, have collapsed. The problem is so extreme that some cities are strapped for cash and can no longer afford essential public services. Local government financing platforms owe nearly $10 trillion. International image. China is currently in a tough position. It must keep its position as a top lender to compete with the West, and that can only happen if loans are renegotiated. China's economic situation is even more complex because the government is too indebted to boost the economy as it did during the global financial crisis. The central government has since alerted the local governments that it won't come to its rescue. If bad comes to worse, provinces may be allowed to borrow more to fund infrastructure projects and boost the economy. And now, to the final straw breaking China's back. Beyond property woes and the inherent debt crisis is another looming economic disaster. China has held the position of the world's most populous country for centuries, but in 2023, something spectacular happened. India officially stole the spotlight as the most populous country, with its population estimated to reach 1.7 billion by 2060. While being number one is not good news for India, our focus is on China and what these population dynamics mean. First, it shows that the country's fertility rate has hit rock bottom to a record low of 1.009 from last year. Studies show that the country's population started shrinking last year for the first time in 60 years, China's National Bureau of Statistics announced that the population fell by 850,000 people less than the previous year. And that's not all. The birth rate also crashed to a record low of 6.77 births per 1,000 people, against 7.52 the previous year. Despite the government's incentives for married couples to have more children, it hasn't yielded much results. For instance, couples in Shenzhen with 1 to 3 children are entitled to subsidies of up to $2,800 per child. Ironically, only 9.56 million babies were born in 2022 compared to 10.62 million in 2021. Recall that in 1979, China implemented the one-child policy to control population growth. This wreaked havoc on the birth scene, with the aftermath hitting hard. The policy saw fewer births in the country and an imbalance in gender ratios. On top of that, the People's Republic of China now struggles with a decline in the number of women of childbearing age. At this rate, the labor force will shrink pretty soon. We're talking about fewer innovators, entrepreneurs, and skilled workers to fuel the thriving economy. The decline in the younger workforce makes it difficult for businesses to find labor that matches demand. Worse still, the government will have its hands full with social spending, healthcare, and higher debt burden. An aging population leads to increased competition for the available jobs, forcing younger people to struggle for a slice of the employment pie. You don't want to know how this affects the real estate industry. Demand for housing will nosedive in the long run, leading to a surplus. Do you know what it means to throw a party and no one shows up? The real estate industry is about to experience that. On the brighter side, Xi Jinping aims to increase China's economic growth rate. While the country may not achieve the same GDP per capita as the US, there is still room to improve economic activity and household wealth. Better still, China can heave a sigh of relief because countries like South Korea, Australia, Singapore, and Japan have had population problems and still survived. By learning from the experiences of these countries, it may be possible to successfully recover. With all that's happening, can this communist state match the US on a global level? Please share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest economic news. We'll see you in the next one.